What's going on, Jeromes? We're back, daily Jeromes live stream, 11 a.m.-ish Central Time, Monday through Thursday. Thanks for coming along. So, had to start a little bit early today. Got some things going on, trying to win the day. We got a lot of Qs. We got some A's, talking free agency, talking Vikings, talking draft. So let's get this damn thing going. First up, John Anderson TV. Given our small amount of draft picks in 2022, if we fail this year, we'll trade off most people and enter full rebuild mode. I don't think they're strapped for picks in 2022 because I think they've only given up the fifth for Yannick, and then they got a fifth back from the Ravens for Yannick. So I think they're fine with their 7. I guess that is a small amount of picks given Rick Spielman, but nah. Climate. How would you feel about Trevor Moehrig at 14 or trading Kirk Cousins for Lance? What would you rather do? Well, I'd rather do the latter, but Moehrig at 14, the board would have to break specifically bad for the Vikings, where all 5 QBs are gone. Darrisaw and Slater, gone. The big 4 playmakers, gone. And Micah Parsons, gone. So how many is that? So it's 5, 10. Yeah, so it would have to be specifically that. But then AVT would still be on board because that's only 13 guys. But I would still take AVT over Moehrig. Yeah. Miles, Andy, you know you're doing the right thing when people like PFT's Mike Florio steals a Charlie conspiracy meme like you've been doing. You have to think he's a Vikings fan, definitely clicked on a video or two, don't you? I think it's a pretty common thing. It's like, so say there's like a national story about a celebrity pooping themselves. I mean, people are going to make poop jokes. So, I mean, it's not, we're not reinventing the wheel here. So I'm sure it's just coincidence. Samson Romaine. Would you bring Mike Tice out of retirement to be the new O-line coach? Yes. Yes, I would. Mike Tice, man, where he definitely rose above his level of competency. Like he definitely Peter principled it, but he's a good offensive line coach. Maybe a little bit too old school, but of course Rick Dennison is definitely in that boat as well. I think that Tice has always been a player's coach. I think he could relate to these young kids, even though he yells about millennials every now and then. Kieran McDonald. I was surprised when we cut Klein, and I'm even more surprised that he hasn't been picked up since. Has he retired, or is it just many suitors, blah, blah, blah? Well, one of the main Vikings concerns was those concussions. He had 2 in 2019, and they want him back at a lower rate, and he was on the back burner from what I've been told of last year. In case Ezra didn't work out, he would have been brought back into the fold, but I think he's just out there chilling, and if poop does hit the fan, I think he's one of those guys. But Hunter Williams. Skull from Savage, thank you for the best content. Thank you. Will Patrick Peterson be a Hall of Famer? I think he will be. I don't think he'll be first ballot. I think he'll be 4th, 5th, 6th ballot type guy. Miles, a week or so before the draft, you should post on the community page a board where Jeromes can submit at least one bold hot draft prediction in case they're going to come true. Blah, blah, blah. Yes. John Brandt, I'm going to Winona next fall. Let's hear some recommendations on things to do there. Well, it's a family show. Plus, beyond the obvious of fun things to do in college, Winona's a great town. It's really beautiful. You're in a valley. You're on the river. So I would say getting out as much as possible, whether it's on the river, it's on the lakes. They got 2 big lakes as well. Climbing Garvin. Not Garvin. Climbing Sugarloaf. What's that called? No, it's not it. But yeah, climbing up to the top of Sugarloaf. It's always fun. Garvin's a great overlook area. Winona, all the bars that I went to and restaurants that I liked have been closed. I mean, that's how long it is. I mean, time moves on, but I mean, you're obviously not of age, so I'm not going to recommend anything like that. But Winona is a good town to have a good time in. Cost of living is low, and yeah, you know what it is. Oh, go to as many football games, as many basketball games as possible. I think Winona State still has a good basketball team. I'm not really sure. But yeah, Tom Sawyer doing some damn things in Winona State. So there you go. Yeah, just get involved in as many activities as possible because college goes by fast. You're only there for 4 years. 5 for me. Oh. But yeah, enjoy yourself. Get out there. Diego said, we need to trade back, get a 2nd-round pick, and draft a safety like Moehrig or Hufanga. I mean, yeah, it's not that easy, but Moehrig and Hufanga, I think you can get Hufanga in the 3rd round, 3rd, 4th round area. Moehrig's a stud. Man, Richie Grant is growing on me, though. I watched some Richie Grant tape a couple days ago. He's a stud. Zaragoza, 44. With Seattle coming to our house this year, do you think we finally give Russell Wilson his first elegance? Says yes, because Russell Wilson beyond DK Metcalf, that is an XFL team. Erickson, I say trade down to late 20s and get a second round pick from the late 20s, go BPA, and then trade up in the second round and get Dickerson. Again, yes. If it's that easy, yes. Alex, I say draft declarations of trading and getting value, or getting over your skis and value. It's a lot like 7th grade class president campaign promises. I promise no homework and ice cream for lunch. Okay. Alex, do you think it's possible to bring Tony Dungy home to fix his cursed franchise skull? Now, I think his coaching days are behind him. Tony was always a guy who I think had a very healthy perspective about coaching. Is that him and Chuck, so he was drafted by the Steelers, former Gophers great quarterback. They converted him to cornerback, and I think that his years in Pittsburgh, Chuck Noll, really helped Tony develop his view about coaching. And also he became the Steelers defense coordinator eventually. But it's that football is not your life's work. It's what you do for work. And your life's work is more about impacting others. I know that Tony, beyond his Sunday Night Football duties, I believe he still has a prison ministry. I think that he started that thing up when Michael Vick was incarcerated. So I think that he is more than content of impacting people's lives and through that method, as opposed to there's a lot of ego and hubris involved in wanting to coach, wanting to be that person who gets a team over the hump. But I mean, Tony's a good man. Tony was a great coach as well. So I don't think it's gonna happen. Chad Franson, I grew up in Eden Prairie but live in Chico, California. Is that where Rodgers went? Go to like Chico State or something. I really appreciate. No, he went to Butte College. He's from Chico. There you go. I really appreciate your Vikings takes. Thank you. Your opinion of Kirk Cousins confused me. 3 of our first 7 games could have been won on one last drive. Most quarterbacks do that easily. Thoughts? It didn't happen. But he played like a nail driver the final 10 games. Anderson Palma. I noticed you wore jiu-jitsu shirts in your videos. Do you train grapple, and what belt are you? So I trained informally in college, a lot of no-gi stuff, but wasn't in the belt system. But no, back in the game. My school finally reopened after COVID and whatnot. But I am a white belt. I'm definitely a white belt, but it's humbling, and it's definitely it's a good lesson for life. Is that shut up. Listen to people who know more than you, absorb it, and then just try and pay it forward eventually. Again, you're always going to be humbled. You're always going to suck. You're always going to get tapped out. So it's a good metaphor for life. I like it. I mainly want to get into it formally because, my daughter probably won't get into it. She's not really. Again, this isn't a gender thing. I mean, just she's not really into sports or athletics. But the son, you can already tell that the boy, he wants to get in the game. So I definitely want to be a little bit further down the road in case that he wants to get into jiu-jitsu or taekwondo or whatever form of martial art, because I think it's really good for discipline and whatnot. So I just wanted to do that for him. And for myself too. It's definitely not all altruistic. Elijah Smith. Do you see Irv Smith finally taking off this year? Yes. I think he'll be a top 5 fantasy tight end. Woo! Traveler. Still a long way until the season starts, but what teams in the NFC besides the Vikings are looking strong? The Bucks. End of list. Let us know where you're watching from. We'll give a couple shout outs. Road Anapati, could you explain how the rollover cap works in the NFL? So if you have cap space remaining at the end of the season for your top 51, that rolls over to the next season. So that's how you see teams like the Colts this year, like the Jets, they're rolling over massive amounts of salary cap. And there is a cap floor that does come into play. Like you have to spend a certain percentage of the set cap over, I think it's like a 3 to 5 year period, but that's generally not an issue. But the Vikings rolled over, I think, $4.5 million. And that was because they traded Yannick after 6 games because they saved the proration of 10 games of his $12 million salary, which was important. I mean, they could have hung out with Yannick and probably got a comp pick after he left and signed somewhere in free agency. But I think Spielman saw that it was smart to save that cap and roll over to this year because look what the Vikings are doing right now. A couple shout outs. Nathan Stepan Skull from Mobile What's going on? Pulford Skull, Nashville, Tennessee. Obi Asuji, skull from Savage. Brock Swanson, skull from Casson. You guys are the best. Again, apologies for starting early, but got stuff to do today. Next up, Abza Abdi. With some of the pro days in the books, what names that aren't projected in the first round make their way into the first round? Well, I think Jason Away is going to be the poster child for that. Limited college production, even though he was solid against the run, he does get pressures. Of course, famously had 0 sacks in 2020, but we talked about there's reasons for that. And everyone knew he was athletic, but seeing it numbers-wise, concrete, like it does just slap different. So I think Away, who was on the bubble to make the first round, I think he gets in. I think Sam Cosmi has a good chance as well. Same thing with Joseph Asai, the edge rusher from Texas. So I think those guys may have punched their tickets into the first round. Thorvald Von Johnson. Is Kirk's winning percentage versus teams with a winning record a meaningful telling stat? Well, I've always said the quarterback wins isn't a stat, but it's an indicator. I mean, you look at Tom Brady, you look at Russell Wilson, they have they have extremely good winning percentage against teams with winning records, and that's not by accident. Like every single year, they're just not stacked to the gills with talent around them. And yeah, if you're not getting it done against the best teams, I think that really is on you. Pulford Skull. Like, you don't see an elite quarterback with a losing record against teams with winning records. You just don't see it. Like, maybe they'll hover around 500, sure. Pulford Skull. Vikings need to get BP at 14, sign a few offensive linemen ASAP, say Ezra Hinton, left guard TBD. Trade for Orlando Brown, sign Austin Blythe, and just let's go win. Rob E. Great free agency for the division. Free agent losses plus gains. Is each roster better or worse right now than in February? All right, so the Vikings won. A+, A+, A+. So the Packers, they kept Aaron Jones. They cut Pretty Ricky Wagner. They kept Preston Smith, who they may have had to cut. They brought back Kevin King, which is kind of funny. They missed out on Will Fuller. So I'll put them at C. Lions so far. So they gave away Stafford. They got Jared Goff. They got draft capital, sure. They lost Galladay. They lost Marvin Jones. They kept Romeo Okwara, which is smart on their part. They cut Justin Coleman. I'll put them second. I'll put the Packers third. And then the Bears. So they cut Kyle Fuller. They may have to cut or trade Akeem Hicks. They kept Allen Robinson on the franchise tag, even though he's certainly not happy with that. They downgraded, in my opinion, from Mitchell Trubisky-Ponder, who was good last year, respect, to Andy Dalton. They whiffed on Russell Wilson. Yeah, that's bottom. That's ass, man. That's booty. Rodrigo Campos. Skull from Brazil. What do you think about Kirk's future? Do you think we'll give him an extension next year? I don't. I think they'll play out next year, see what happens. I think they definitely will add a void year to spread out his $45 million cap hit next year. So I think they'll go down that route. Also, a couple shouts. Ed Toro, Colorado. What's up? Josh Onkin, Skull from Fargo. What's going on? You guys are the best. Next up. Abi Asuji, hit, miss, or meh on the Vikings' last 10 first-round picks. The NFL did this, but this is outdated and not accurate. All right, so 10 years. So 2011, Christian Ponder, hit, miss, or meh. Meh. 12, Khalil, meh. Harrison Smith, hit. 2013, Xavier Rhodes. Well, what's worse, miss or meh? Well, I guess miss would be meh. All right, so miss on Khalil, hit on Harrison, 2013. Meh on Xavier. On Sharif, if we would say healthy. Meh on Cordero, 2014. Hit on Barr. Meh on Teddy with the injury, 2015. Meh on Trey Waynes, 2016. Miss on Laquan, 2017. No first round pick. 2018. TBD on Bradbury, 2019. Who did they draft in the first round, 2019? Wait, no, 2018 was Mike Hughes. Miss through injury. 2019 Bradbury, TBD, and 2020. Let's go. 2020, let's go. Justin friggin' Jefferson, hit, and Gladney, TBD. Samuel Sanders goal. If we get Everson and Eric Wilson back, do you think we'd have the best defense in Zimmer history? I think they might have that even without those two jabronis. I think it's getting close. If they keep Daniil Hunter. Ruben Barajas, thoughts on Dylan Moses? Wasn't he supposed to be a high pick? Yes, and then he really had that really unfortunate injury. But I think that he's going to be some insane value somewhere. I think that he can get healthy, stay right. He's an extremely talented player. I don't know where he's going to go. Like, he could go high second round. He could drop out of day 2 altogether. But the Vikings should be interested. Ted Schiffen, who makes more of an impact this year, Weatherly or Wanham? I think Weatherly will have similar role 2019. He'll play some edge. He'll play inside. I think Wanham does have a chance to make that leap in year 2 and be just a consistent presence on the edge, especially if and when Danielle Hunter is back and he's not getting so much attention. Yeah, Wanham would be that guy. Chris Danny Hansen. How good was Ray Edwards? I feel like he was overshadowed by how good Jared Allen was, along with Williams while being so dominant. He was decent. Ray Edwards, a pride of Purdue. He was decent, but Brian Robinson was definitely an upgrade. I mean, that's pretty obvious. He signed with Atlanta, I believe, and he was whatever. He's a worse boxer, by the way, even though he gets fed tomato cans. But yeah, he was fine. He was a starting caliber NFL defensive end. He wasn't. I think his career high was 8 sacks in a season. Chris Zach. What are the odds we actually trade for Orlando Brown? 10%. What would you consider a reasonable trade? Hell, I would trade 14 straight up, except I know people are upset about that. I know there's been talk about, well, swap 14 for 27 and some change. I don't think the Ravens will go for that because the Ravens do play hardball. Like, DeCosta knows what he's doing. Like, at worst comes to worst, Orlando Brown, what are you going to do? Sit out this year and remove a year of accrued towards free agency? Ain't going to do that. I mean, second round pick would be that equitable spot, except, of course, the Vikings don't have a second round pick. But I guess 14 for a 2. 14-4 for a 2. It's somewhere in there. Spartus. I know the chances of Danielle getting traded now are slim to none, but if contract negotiations broke down, the Vikings were forced to move on from him. Do you think they would try and trade him to the Falcons, who need an edge rush in exchange for number 4? They could try. The Falcons would just say no. Griffin Creer. Would you rather get Darisaw and ignore the O-line for the rest of the draft, or draft Deante Smith and hammer offensive line for the rest of the draft? So you get Darisaw, you're set and forget at left tackle, or Deante Smith would be a lot of fun. And then third round, get Quinn Mayners or Ben Cleveland or Josh Myers or Kendrick Green or why am I blanking? James Hudson. There you go. I was thinking James Hudson, but I was thinking Jackson Hudson. Is like, no, that's an amalgamation of James Hudson and Jackson Carman. So yeah, James Hudson in that area. I'll take the latter. As much as I love Darisaw, I mean, there is some good interior offensive line talent in the middle of the draft. And Deante Smith is just that dude, man. Zeke Lockhart, 1. Do you think shiny helmets? Nah, I think that's dumb. Like Oregon's chrome helmets, I thought that was dumb. 2, let's say the NFL takes a 180-degree turn on draft day and all the defense and all offensive line are taken. Who are you drafting in the first? Well, what? So, still take. Well, it's going to be impossible because there's only 13 players that can be taken. I guess just BPA. Brady Jenkins, how do you feel about our 3-4 defense depending on who we get in the draft or rest of free agency? Wouldn't be the worst thing. So you could use Danielle as a 5-tech, 3-4 defensive end or stand up in certain packages. He doesn't really have the agility to be an every down coverage guy. But Anthony Barr could be used as an outside linebacker. You would have Nick Vigil and Troy Dye along with Kendricks in the middle. And then Michael Pierce is probably best suited for a 3-4 nose tackle. And Delvin Tomlinson can play that nose tackle and sub package, or he could play the other 5-tech. So it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Plus, Wanham does have experience as a stand-up outside linebacker as well. Patrick Harms, Google Austin Blythe and articles, blah, 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 blah. Vikings sign him today. Maybe not today, but they'll get something done. Anderson Paul Muscle from New York. What do you think our record will be this season? 17-0? Nah, just kidding. Probably 12-5. Maybe. And can you see us trading up in the draft? Trading up? No. Trading? Yes. KC Wall. Who would you be willing to trade for Justin Herbert? No. Screw that guy. Andrea Hansen. Who is a day 3 sleeper the Vikings could get in the draft as a immediate contributor to the offensive line? So I've been really bullish on Jack Anderson of Texas Tech. Should be in the 4th, 5th round range. Deante Smith. So Deante Smith, he played in college at like 280, but he showed up at the Senior Bowl. He's at like 295. I believe he just weighed in at his pro day at like 305. That's really monstrous for him. But lengthy, athletic, sort of reminds me of Alex Taylor coming out of South Carolina State a couple of years ago, or it might have been last year, but a little bit more filled out, and he would be a really interesting tackle prospect. James Hudson is also in that mix. Maybe he gets to the 4th round. I doubt it, though. Kendrick Green, maybe he gets to the 4th round, but yeah, I think his sweet spot is probably more the 3rd round. See, later on, I like Tristan Hodge from BYU, the guard. I like him a little bit more than Brady Christensen, the tackle, as well. See, who else? Drake Jackson from Kentucky. I think specifically for what the Vikings want to do scheme fit wise, it would make sense. I think he'll get to the 4th round. So there you go. Ben Weatherly. Which Vikings rookie from 2020 do you think will step up the most this season? I think Cameron Dantzler becomes a Pro Bowl caliber cornerback. Plop it on the table. Brecken Johannes. Do you think the Vikings might resign Eric Wilson? Maybe. League minimum. That's it. Derek Baker. Chances the Vikings draft Deante Smith and Zimmer converts him to a cornerback, 0. Number 2, let's say the Vikings stick and pick at 14. They don't draft an offensive lineman. Realistically, who could they trade up with to get into the early mid-second round, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I'd have to take a look at the board. It's all dependent on what teams would be interested in and what players are still on board. Anders, Colt Vet, Irv Smith over under 750. I'd say under, but not by much. I'd say 706 touchdowns. Caden, why do you like Darisaw over Slater? What do you know? I think that Slater is better proportion. Darisaw is better proportion. Slater, if Slater was 6'6" like his pops or 6'7" like his dad, he would be the number 1 offensive lineman over Penny Sewell. But Darisaw can certainly play with power. Slater, you do have questions about his anchor. I mean, he's certainly fine for the outside zone scheme, and I would play him at tackle. But Darisaw is just that dude, man. He's got prototypical size, can play power, can run block in power, can run block in outside zone as well. Plus, he just is comfortable out there. He just is really good. Like, he really does remind me of DeBrickashaw Ferguson, even though that's just a Virginia Tech thing. But Darisaw is that dude. I think there's fewer questions with Darisaw than there is about Slater, if that makes sense. Samson Romaine, why would you grade our offseason? Why not? Mano Giscus, let's say Penny Sewell falls to 9 due to a run on quarterbacks. What's your offer to get to them? 14 and a future 2nd and a 4th. Take it or leave it, Georgie Porgy. Meyer 64. What do you think about Deonte Brown? He's got size, man. He did work on some center flexibility, even though I think that he's just a nail driver at guard. He's definitely not about that movement skills life, but just a tough, physical phone booth guy. Given my choice, I would prefer Ben Cleveland over Deonte. I would prefer Trey Smith over Deonte. Oh, Trey Smith is a guy I didn't mention either. I would prefer David Moore of Grambling over Deonte. Yeah, but he's a really interesting player. If you get him in the 4th round, sure. I'm not going to touch him earlier than that. Jaime Okukin. Who's your favorite prospect in this draft of all the players? Trevor Lawrence. Chris Danny Hansen. Do you think the Daniil extension will be before the start of the season or mid-season? I think it'll be after June 1st. Westworld. What do you believe is a contingency plan if Clint ends up failing? I don't think they have one, because if Clint fails, everyone's probably getting fired. Nick Wolf. Who are some guys that you think will be undrafted free agents that the Vikings should look into signing after the draft? I think if Ian Book goes undrafted, would definitely pick him up. See, I haven't done a ton of work on UDFAs, to be honest. Maybe KJ Brick goes undrafted because of that slow-ass 40. It's possible. Wide receivers. I mean, Josh Palmer, I guess, could go undrafted. He's been a low-key draft crush of mine for a while. I'd be in on him. I think Taron Jackson gets drafted. Malcolm Kuntz, the edge rusher from Buffalo. Maybe he doesn't go. I definitely would be in on him. Griffin Career, who is Jalen Phillips' NFL comparison? Daniel Jeremiah had a Montez Sweat comparison, which makes sense given the injury stuff as well as good hands. He's definitely not a physical freak on the level of Montez Sweat, but given the build, yeah, you could see it. King Kirk, Jalen Phillips over all other edge rushers. I wouldn't go that far. I would still take Pay and Aziz over Phillips. I think Phillips and Rousseau are relatively interchangeable, and that's not just because they went to Miami and wore number 15. Westworld, least favorite quarterback number 1. Just doesn't look right. Just looks weird. And it's not an ego thing. It's like, oh, I'm number 1. It's like, it just doesn't look good. Madden, Daniil plus 2 first for the second overall pick. Yes. Or Kirk plus 3 first for the second overall pick. Oh, selection? Kirk. Author Nick Olson. Any updates on Lamp or other targeted offensive line? Quiet. Silencio. Nada. Brady Price, score from Tejas. What are your thoughts on Syracuse safety Andre Cisco as a prospect? I like Cisco Thong Song a lot, but there are a lot of health questions 2019 and 2020. Like his last good tape was as a freshman 2018, but if he can be that dude again, I think he'll be great value. I think he'll probably go in that 3rd round area. So, I mean, the Vikings went with Cisco at 78 or 90. I ain't mad. I ain't mad. So safety-wise, it's Morig, Richie, Jevon, and then Cisco, and then you get in everyone else. Hufanga, Cade Stearns, Paris Ford, Ardarius. Yeah, it gets pretty thick. Like, there's a lot of good safeties in the mid-rounds. Darius Martin. Any chance we sign CP84 still? Probably not. Matt Myers, any chance they're ignoring the offensive line because they think Hinton and Udo are ready? It's possible. I don't think they should rely on that, though. Where I'm definitely bullish on Hinton and Udo, but go get your guys. You have the cap, you have the draft picks, go do it. Andy Maxfield. So why is there so many people, national and local, won't name names, who are just thrashing our offseason moves? I don't know, because I think it's easier just to be negative about things, I mean, blah, 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 those Bears, what are they doing? So I can understand national, local. I mean, that's whatever. Paul Silva. You think the Vikings are ignoring the offense in free agency because they can run it back? Because they run back on offense. Do you think it's been telling about that, man? Well, they should still look for offensive line help, and they should look to freshen up wide receiver 3. So, yeah, but other than that, the offense had fewer question marks than the defense going into the offseason, if that made sense. That's it. That is the Daily Jerome's live stream for today. Again, sorry for starting a little bit early, but we got stuff to do. Thanks for coming along. We'll be back tomorrow at 11 a.m. Central Time. Probably. You guys are the best. Skol.